Long ball number one here on Monday, August 11th. Heung-Min's son is on Los Angeles Football Club, and he subbed into the game over the weekend, came on as a sub against the Chicago Fire in Bridgeview, of all places. Drew a pen, had an instant impact. Weird introduction, but could potentially have a big impact on this club and potentially the league, right?
I was hoping he would get a shot off and maybe score there instead of the penalty. It definitely was a penalty, 100% right call. And of course, you don't walk into a team like when your son, no matter how much you cost, and it was an MLS record of $26 million that LAFC paid for him, and sort of become the guy, even if you have been a great player and a superstar. So who takes the penalty kick? Is it Son? And there's also that unwritten rule, Rob. The penalty kick, the player who wins the penalty kick doesn't take the penalty. That you usually kind of try to find a way around that. And of course, Denis Bouanga is the guy in LAFC. And so he takes the penalty. He scores the penalty. Obviously, it ends up in a 2-2 draw, which I think was a little disappointing for LAFC. I do think that there are going to be some questions about whether Denis Bouanga and Son can play together in a very effective kind of way. You saw Nathan Ordaz, his influence in that team. I think he's obviously going to be important. I was reading Matt Doyle's take on Son's debut this morning, and it was a lot of that, right? And we knew coming in to the arrival of Son, like once this deal started to unfold, once we knew it was happening, that there were going to be some questions that Steve Cherundolo has to answer as to how they play together, right? What space is it? Because where does Son like to pop up? Left channel, cutting inside. Where does Denis Bouanga like to pop up? Left channel, cutting inside. So you can't have two superstar players in the same space and expect it to work. You've got to find ways around that. Will that be easy? I don't know, Rob. Will it be easy?
Yeah, it's kind of wild that LAFC, you could say that they have been underpowered from years in the past, but they've still been making it work because they have the one-trick pony in Bouanga who does that thing that you just said. And Son, he's been famous for 10-plus years for doing that thing. So it's wild that the one place that they had coverage in is where they spent their record amount of money is. Does that mean that Bouanga is outbound and they're kind of like trying to maybe exchange to get their return for him forthcoming, or they'll just like maybe Major League Soccer isn't such a razor thin margins to where one of these guys can move around and still find success?
Well, I think that if you're LAFC and if you're an MLS team, right, this is something that is a little uncomfortable for us sometimes when we're talking about American soccer. If you're a fan of MLS, it's that thing of, well, teams don't make decisions solely on what player is going to help them win. They make decisions based on whether that player can help them win, but also how many jerseys he'll sell or how many tickets he can possibly sell, how much attention you'll get from signing him. And that's why Son makes so much sense in Los Angeles. Like, it almost doesn't matter if there's a Denis Bouanga in place, because you can't say no to a player like Son when he can have the impact in Southern California with the attention. I don't think people understand. Like, I got into a little bit of a beef last week. I saw that Pam at 53 was saying that he got his double dose of Jason today because he listened to the Best Soccer Show. On last week's Best Soccer Show that I did with Jared Dubois, there was a little bit of a discussion as to whether or not Son is bigger than Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who, of course, the LA Galaxy signed and brought in. And he said, there's no way that Son's a bigger name than Ibrahimovic. And I said, no, worldwide, Ibra is a much bigger name. But in terms of the passion of the people who care about the players, I think you can make a really strong argument that Son is much more important in that way to the people who care about him. I mean, we're obviously talking about mostly Koreans, but not all. But that's a thing, right? If those people are buying shirts, if they're buying tickets, if they're paying attention to LAFC, if they are part of the reason that MLS gets more viewers on Apple TV and MLS Season Pass because Son is playing in MLS, you sign the player. It doesn't matter if you've got space issues with your best player in Denis Bouanga. You figure it out on the fly. And look, there are not a lot of leagues where teams aren't considering the commercial part of it in addition to the playing part of it. But in this case, it does feel like it's tilted towards the commercial part, and they have to figure out the playing part, Rob.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And there was another club player winning the World Cup in America alert. The LA mayor embarrassing herself a little bit during that press conference. It was very much Bastian Schweinsteiger. But going back to your discussion between Son and Ibrahimovic, they definitely don't burn the same way. Ibrahimovic was great, produced some of the league's best highlights. But do people break down in tears at the sight of Zlatan because they love him as a player so much? Like, I've seen that regularly for years. People just like melting down when they get to shake the hand of Son.
That's the thing about, and if you want to get into the psychology of it, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is Swedish, obviously, son of an immigrant family, but Swedish. And then, Sweden is a football crazy country, but the way that they kind of express that, and they've had Henrik Larsson and they've had great players before, right? That's not Sweden has been, and Sweden's in Europe, and just a different vibe, right? What does Korea have in world football, right? They have Son. They have decent players. There are other good players that have come out of South Korea. I'm not saying there haven't, but nobody has reached that level, right? Nobody has been what Son has been, particularly in the Premier League, the most visible league in the world. So you're talking about it's sort of like us with Christian Pulisic, except Son is a very, very charismatic guy, whereas Christian Pulisic struggles with that part of the job. And again, the United States is not a football mad country the way that South Korea, and they have baseball, they do other things, but they also have a very, very passionate soccer community. And that's sort of that national pride element overwhelms everything else when it comes to Son. I think that's just part of this. I will go back here because this is obviously a little bit interesting for people. It's amazing how quickly his visa was cleared. We have international transfer still waiting a few weeks later. I don't know I don't want to believe anything shady happened there. I don't know if the deal was done before the deal was done and they got things rolling in that direction. But it was shocking to me that they unveiled him last week and it was like, oh yeah, he's going to play in Chicago on the weekend because his visa cleared. Wait, what? How did you get that done so fast? Like, I know if you have money and you have influence, things move faster when we're talking about red tape, but that felt very quick.
I know that's probably not unprecedented, not exactly an apples to apples, but when you have power and money, the legal systems do move faster. I remember back in COVID, this is very anecdotal, but back in COVID, when all the Secretary of States and everything were backed up, no one was getting in there. I think it was about 10,000 Amazon drivers got their appointments to get their chauffeur's license in like a 3-month span when like nobody could get appointments. So when there's a will, there's a way when getting documentation over the line with the government and whatnot. But do you find it odd that the debut came in such a place in such a way? That was just odd in general, right? I mean late games. Or is it just like we want to get him on the field as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think so. If they believe he's fit enough to play half an hour and that's what he played, then you get him in the game as soon as you possibly can. You get as much influence on the field as you can out of Son. So there's that.